A badge is supposed to be a shield, but on a lonely stretch of highway, it can feel like a weapon. When a corrupt deputy illegally seized a young black man's car, he thought he was asserting his absolute dominance. He didn't know the vehicle was a federal Trojan horse. The rain was coming down in sheets across Highway 87, a desolate two-lane ribbon of asphalt cutting through the dense pine forests of Oconee County, Georgia. It was the kind of night where the only people out are those running from something or those hunting them. Malik Voss gripped the leather steering wheel of his charcoal gray Dodge Charger, his knuckles slightly lighter than the rest of his deep brown skin. He was a structural engineer by day, but tonight his profession didn't matter. Tonight, he was playing a role carefully orchestrated by people with far more power than the local law enforcement. Malik checked his rearview mirror, nothing but absolute darkness. Hidden beneath the sleek interior of the Charger was over $80,000 worth of federal surveillance equipment. There were pinhole cameras seamlessly integrated into the AC vents, a high-fidelity parabolic microphone hidden inside the dome light, and a military-grade GPS and encrypted cellular uplink welded beneath the floorboards. "Stay on the route, Malik." A voice crackled softly through a microscopic earpiece in his right ear. It was Special Agent Elias Thorne of the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force. Thorne was sitting in a command center in Atlanta, watching a glowing green dot move across his monitor. "I'm on it," Malik murmured, his voice barely rising above the rhythmic thud of the windshield wipers. "It's quiet out here. You sure they take this route?" "They patrol this stretch every night looking for out-of-state plates or anyone they think they can squeeze," Thorne replied. "Just drive the speed limit. Let them find you." For years, the Oconee County Sheriff's Department had operated less like a law enforcement agency and more like a cartel. They were notorious for civil asset forfeiture abuse, pulling over out-of-town drivers, particularly minorities, claiming to smell narcotics and seizing their cash, vehicles, and valuables without ever filing criminal charges. It was highway robbery with a badge. Malik knew this pain firsthand. Years ago, his younger brother had his life savings seized on this very road. Money meant for a college tuition down payment. The stress had ruined his brother's life. When the FBI quietly reached out to Malik, knowing he had a clean record and a personal vendetta, he didn't hesitate to volunteer as the bait. Suddenly, the darkness in the rearview mirror was shattered by a blinding explosion of red and blue. Malik's heart hammered against his ribs. The adrenaline was instant and primal. Despite knowing he was backed by the federal government, the sight of those lights triggered a deeply ingrained anxiety. He engaged his turn signal, slowly pulling the heavy Charger onto the muddy shoulder of the highway. The gravel crunched beneath his tires as he threw the car into park. "Showtime," Thorne's voice whispered in his ear. "Deep breaths, Malik. Let him hang himself." Malik rolled down his window. The cold rain blew into the cabin, bringing with it the smell of wet asphalt and pine needles. He placed both hands firmly at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, waiting. In the side mirror, the silhouette of a heavy-set man stepped out of the cruiser. Deputy Grant Keller. Keller was a longtime veteran of the force, a man whose reputation preceded him. He walked with a slow, arrogant swagger, his heavy boots splashing through the puddles, his flashlight beam cut through the rain, aggressively sweeping over the trunk, the back seats, and finally blasting directly into Malik's eyes. Malik blinked, turning his head slightly away from the blinding halogen beam. "License, registration, and proof of insurance," Keller drawled, resting his heavy hand on the butt of his holstered sidearm. He didn't offer a greeting. He didn't state the reason for the stop. It was purely an assertion of dominance. "Good evening, officer," Malik said, keeping his voice level and polite. "My wallet is in my back right pocket. My registration is in the glove compartment. I am going to reach for them now." Keller spat a stream of dark tobacco juice onto the wet road. "I didn't ask for a speech, boy. Just hand them over." Malik slowly retrieved the documents and handed them through the window. Keller took them, deliberately taking his time. He shined his light on Malik's Atlanta address, then leaned down, resting his forearms on the windowsill, invading Malik's personal space. The smell of cheap coffee and wet wool radiated off the deputy. "What brings you out to Oconee County late at night, Malik?" Keller asked, drawing out the syllables of the name like a taunt. "Just driving through, deputy, heading home from a family gathering," Malik replied calmly. "Family gathering in the middle of a torrential downpour," Keller chuckled. A dry, humorless sound. You know this is a known drug corridor. We get a lot of traffickers moving product through here at this hour." "I don't know anything about that, sir." Keller tapped the edge of Malik's driver's license against the roof of the Charger. "Nice car, Charger, V8 engine, custom rims. You pay for this yourself, or is it a company car?" "It's mine," Malik said. An engineer. Must pay well," Keller muttered, his eyes raking the interior. He was looking for a reason, any reason. "Step out of the vehicle." Malik's hands tightened on the wheel. "May I ask why, Deputy? I wasn't speeding." Keller's demeanor shifted instantly from patronizing to aggressive. He leaned further in. "You can ask why, and I can pull you through this window. I said step out of the damn car." In Malik's ear, Agent Thorne's voice was sharp. "Comply, Malik. Do not resist. Let him escalate." Malik opened the door, stepping out into the freezing rain. He stood tall, which only seemed to agitate the shorter, stockier deputy. Keller immediately spun Malik around, shoving him roughly against the wet side of the Charger. "Spread 'em!" Keller barked, kicking Malik's feet apart. He patted him down with unnecessary force, finding nothing but a cell phone and a set of house keys. "I smell marijuana," Keller announced loudly, speaking to the dashboard camera of his own cruiser. It was the golden lie, the ultimate legal loophole. "I don't smoke, Deputy," Malik said, his face pressed against the cold metal of the car roof. "Shut your mouth," Keller snapped. "I have probable cause. I'm searching this vehicle." Deputy Keller left Malik standing in the rain, flanked by a second deputy who had silently arrived in a backup cruiser, Deputy Wade Brennan, a younger man with nervous eyes who clearly deferred to Keller's tyrannical lead. Keller began tearing through the Charger. He ripped the contents of the glove box out onto the floorboards. He pulled the back seats forward, shining his flashlight into the crevices. He popped the trunk, violently tossing Malik's gym bag and spare tire aside. He was desperate to find cash. The Oconee County Slush Fund thrived on untraceable currency seized from out-of-town drivers. After a frantic search, Keller slammed the trunk shut. He was soaked, breathing heavily, and visibly furious. He marched back over to where Malik was standing with Deputy Brennan. "Where is it?" Keller demanded, getting inches from Malik's face. "Where is what, Deputy?" "The money, the product. Nobody drives a car like this down Highway 87 late at night without carrying something," Keller growled. "I told you, I'm just an engineer heading home. There's nothing in that car." Keller stared at Malik, a cold, calculating look washing over his face. The deputy's ego was bruised. He had committed to the narrative that Malik was a criminal, and walking away empty-handed in front of his junior partner was unacceptable. Keller smirked, wiping the rain from his forehead. "You know what, Malik? I think these VIN numbers look tampered with. The dashboard plate looks scratched." "That's a brand new car," Malik said, a genuine note of incredulity in his voice. "The VIN is fine. I'm not a mechanic. I'm a law enforcement officer, and it looks suspicious to me," Keller replied smoothly. "Furthermore, under the Oconee County suspicion of contraband statutes, I am seizing this vehicle pending a thorough forensic investigation." Malik locked eyes with Keller. The rain beat down between them. "You're stealing my car." "I'm impounding evidence," Keller corrected, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "Brennan, give the suspect a ride to the Shell station on Route 9. Let him call a cab back to Atlanta." "Wait," Malik said, stepping forward before Brennan could grab his arm. He looked Keller dead in the eye, dropping the frightened civilian act for just a fraction of a second. "Deputy Keller, I'm telling you man to man, you do not want to take those keys. Leave the car here, let me go, and we forget this happened." Keller barked out a laugh. "Are you threatening a sworn officer of the law?" "I'm offering you a lifeline," Malik said quietly. "Put him in the cruiser, Brennan," Keller sneered, turning his back. "I'm driving the Charger back to the yard. We'll strip it down. If there's a false compartment in there, I'll find it." Malik offered no resistance as Brennan led him to the back of the second police cruiser. He slid into the hard plastic seat, the doors locking heavily behind him. Through the rain-streaked window, he watched Keller climb into the driver's seat of the Charger. The engine roared to life, and the taillights faded into the stormy night. Brennan got into the driver's seat of the cruiser, avoiding Malik's eyes in the rearview mirror. They drove in silence for some time until Brennan pulled into a brightly lit, nearly abandoned Shell gas station. "Get out," Brennan said, unlocking the doors. Consider yourself lucky you're not going to county lockup." Malik stepped out into the damp night air. The cruiser sped away, leaving him entirely alone under the flickering fluorescent lights of the gas station awning. He was soaked to the bone, stranded far from home, and his car had just been stolen by a cop. He calmly walked into the convenience store. The solitary clerk behind the counter looked up, startled by the dripping wet man. Malik nodded politely, walked down the snack aisle, and pulled a secondary encrypted burner phone from his soaked jacket pocket, the one Keller had missed during his sloppy pat-down. He dialed a single number. It rang twice. "I watched the whole thing on the feed," Agent Thorne said. Even through the phone, the FBI agent sounded absolutely electrified. "Did he take it to the county impound?" Malik asked, grabbing a styrofoam cup and pouring himself some terrible gas station coffee. "No," Thorne said, the sound of keyboard clacking echoing in the background. "That's the beauty of it, Malik. He didn't log the seizure with dispatch. He didn't take it to the sheriff's lot. He's taking it to a private warehouse off Interstate 20. The same warehouse we suspect the sheriff's department uses to fence stolen property and distribute narcotics." Malik took a sip of the bitter coffee, a slow smile spreading across his face. "So he took the bait. He swallowed the hook, the line, and the sinker," Thorne confirmed. "Keller thinks he just scored a free V8 Charger and whatever he thinks is hidden inside. He doesn't realize he just drove a live federal wiretap directly into the heart of their criminal enterprise. We have audio and high-def video on 3 different angles right now. He's singing along to the radio, completely oblivious." Malik looked out the window of the gas station at the dark highway. Deputy Grant Keller thought he had asserted his ultimate authority. He thought he had victimized another helpless citizen. "Keep the feeds rolling," Malik said softly. "Let's burn them to the ground." Deputy Grant Keller drove the stolen Dodge Charger with the arrogant leisure of a king surveying his conquered lands. The rain continued to batter the windshield, but inside the plush, leather-bound cabin, Keller was in his own private paradise. He turned on the heated seats, cranked up the classic rock station, and drummed his thick fingers against the steering wheel. Far away, in the FBI's Atlanta field office, Special Agent Elias Thorne stood behind a bank of glowing monitors, flanked by 3 audio technicians and a tactical coordinator. The room was bathed in the harsh blue light of the screens. On the center monitor, a crystal-clear high-definition infrared video feed showed Keller's smug face illuminated by the dashboard lights. "Audio is a 9 out of 10, Agent Thorne," a technician whispered, sliding a volume fader up. "We have his breathing, the radio, everything. GPS shows him pulling off Interstate 20, taking a dirt access road." "That's the old logging route," Thorne said, leaning over the console. "It leads straight to the abandoned textile mill on the county line. The sheriff bought it through a shell corporation years ago." "Target vehicle is stopping," the tactical coordinator noted, tapping his earpiece. "Hostage rescue team is staging nearby. They are standing by for your green light." On the video feed, Keller killed the Charger's headlights. A massive corrugated steel door groaned upward, revealing a cavernous, dimly lit warehouse. Keller drove the car inside, the tires squealing softly on the oil-stained concrete floor. The heavy steel door slammed shut behind him, plunging the warehouse into a sickly yellow glow cast by a few hanging halogen bulbs. Keller stepped out of the car, slamming the door. The FBI's exterior pinhole cameras, hidden in the Charger's side mirrors, captured the entire room. It was a massive illegal chop shop and staging ground. Stacks of stolen tires, stripped chassis of high-end SUVs, and crates of shrink-wrapped electronics lined the walls. Standing near a folding table covered in ledgers and brick-shaped packages was a tall, gaunt man wearing a silver star on his chest. Sheriff Nolan Croft. Beside him was a greasy mechanic in stained overalls holding a crowbar, a man known locally as Tucker. "Look what the cat dragged in," Croft drawled, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. The FBI microphones picked up every syllable with terrifying clarity. "I told you to lay low tonight, Grant. The state troopers have been sniffing around the highway." "Relax, Nolan," Keller laughed, tossing the Charger's keys onto the folding table. "State boys are afraid of the rain. Besides, I caught a live one. Stupid city boy from Atlanta. Structural engineer, completely clean record. He practically handed me the keys. Said he was just driving through." Croft walked around the Charger, letting out a low whistle. Brand new V8 custom trim. This is a $90,000 piece of machinery grant. You didn't log this with dispatch, did you? Do I look like a rookie? Keller sneered. I called Brennan out to take the kid to the gas station. Brennan is too scared of his own shadow to say a word. As far as the county records show, this stop never happened. In the FBI command center, Agent Thorne pumped his fist. Got him. Conspiracy, grand theft auto, and falsifying official records. But wait, let them keep talking. We need the drug connection. What do you think is in it? Croft asked, patting the trunk. Kid was driving way too careful. I'm betting there's a false floor in the trunk or a stash box behind the glove compartment, probably carrying $100 grand in cartel cash, Keller said, his eyes gleaming with greed. Croft turned to the mechanic. Tucker, get the angle grinder. Strip the door panels first. If there's cash, we take our 70% cut, send 30 to the judge, just like last time, and we sell the chassis to the boys down in Miami. Did you copy that? Agent Thorne barked at his recording team. Loud and clear, sir, the lead tech replied, his fingers flying across his keyboard to isolate the audio file. He just implicated a sitting county judge in a racketeering enterprise. It's a gold mine, Thorne breathed. This car is the greatest witness we've ever had. Tucker approached the Charger, a heavy pry bar in one hand and a high-powered flashlight in the other. He opened the driver's side door. I'll start with the dash. Sometimes these city boys wire stash boxes to the AC controls. Tension spiked in the command center. Agent Thorne, the tactical coordinator warned, if he tears into the dash, he's going to find the uplink. He'll sever the camera feeds, and they might panic and torch the vehicle before we can secure the evidence. Hold the perimeter, Thorne ordered, his eyes locked on the screen. Let them dig their own graves a little deeper. Inside the warehouse, Tucker wedged the pry bar beneath the plastic molding of the central air conditioning vent. With a harsh crack, the plastic snapped off. Tucker leaned in, shining his flashlight into the dark cavity behind the dashboard. The FBI camera captured Tucker's face contorting in confusion. Hey, Grant, Tucker muttered, his voice losing its casual drawl. Get over here. Keller marched over, a scowl on his face. What? Did you find a brick? No, Tucker said, stepping back and pointing inside the dashboard. I've been stripping cars for years. I know what a Dodge wiring harness looks like. This ain't standard factory wiring. Keller leaned into the car. He saw a thick, braided, military-grade coaxial cable running neatly alongside the standard electrical wires. It was zip-tied with surgical precision, routing upwards toward the dome light and downwards beneath the floorboards. Keller's breath hitched. He reached out and tugged the thick black cable. Follow it, Croft ordered, stepping up behind them, his hand instinctively dropping to his service weapon. See where it goes. Tucker grabbed a utility knife and violently slashed the expensive leather of the passenger seat, ripping the floor mat and the carpeting completely back. There, bolted directly to the steel chassis of the car, was a matte black steel lockbox. It had a blinking green light on the side and a silver metal placard welded to the top. Keller dropped to his knees. His flashlight illuminated the placard. He read the words aloud, his voice trembling so violently he could barely form the syllables. Property of the United States Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Tampering with this equipment is a federal offense. The blood drained from Keller's face. The memory of the rain-soaked highway rushed back to him. He remembered the calm, fearless look in Malik's eyes. I am telling you, man to man, you do not want to take those keys. I'm offering you a lifeline. It's a trap, Keller choked out, staring up at the sheriff with absolute, soul-crushing terror. The kid was bait. Burn it, Sheriff Croft screamed, his voice cracking with panic. He kicked the side of the Charger. Tucker, get the gasoline. Douse the whole damn car. We have to melt that box down to slag. Tucker dropped his tools, sprinting toward a rack of red jerry cans in the corner of the warehouse. In the FBI command center, Agent Thorne didn't hesitate. He slammed his hand down on the desk. They've made the wire. Green light, breach, and secure. Inside the warehouse, Keller was frantically trying to rip the black box from the floorboards, tearing his fingernails to the quick against the unforgiving steel. Help me pull it out, he yelled, hyperventilating. Move, Tucker screamed, running back with a 5-gallon can of gasoline, unscrewing the cap as he ran. Before the first drop of fuel could hit the leather seats, the world exploded. The massive corrugated steel garage door didn't just open, it was violently ripped from its hinges as a 20-ton armored bearcat smashed through it. The deafening crash of buckling steel and shattering concrete echoed like a bomb blast. Instantly, the dark warehouse was flooded with blinding, strobing white tactical lights. FBI, nobody move! Show me your hands! A dozen heavily armed SWAT operators poured into the room like a tactical tidal wave, their assault rifles raised, red laser sights cutting through the dust and exhaust fumes. Tucker dropped the gas can, throwing his hands in the air and falling flat on his face, screaming, "Don't shoot! Don't shoot!" Sheriff Croft froze, his hand hovering over his holstered pistol. 3 red laser dots instantly painted the center of his chest. "Draw that weapon, Nolan, and it will be the last thing you ever do," a booming voice echoed from a megaphone. Croft slowly raised his hands, his face a mask of bitter defeat. Keller was still on his knees inside the open door of the Charger. He slowly turned his head. The warehouse was completely swarming with federal agents. They were securing the stolen cars, bagging the cash on the table, and handcuffing the sheriff. Agent Elias Thorne walked through the settling dust, wearing a navy windbreaker with large yellow letters spelling FBI across the back. He holstered his sidearm and walked calmly over to the Charger. He looked down at Keller, who was kneeling in the dirt, shaking uncontrollably. "Deputy Grant Keller," Thorne said, his voice cold and even. "I believe you took something tonight that belongs to the United States government." Keller couldn't speak. He just stared at the federal agent, his mouth opening and closing like a suffocating fish. 2 SWAT operators grabbed Keller by his armpits, hauling him roughly to his feet and slamming him against the side of his own stolen prize. The cold steel handcuffs clicked tightly around his wrists. "You have the right to remain silent," Thorne recited, leaning in close so only Keller could hear him. "Although, considering we just recorded you and your sheriff confessing to grand theft, extortion, drug trafficking, and bribing a judge, I'd say you've already talked enough to earn a long vacation in a federal penitentiary." As Keller was being dragged toward a waiting transport van, a black SUV pulled into the warehouse behind the armored bearcat. The door opened, and Malik Voss stepped out. He was wearing dry clothes now, holding a steaming cup of coffee. He stood next to Agent Thorne, looking at his battered but victorious Dodge Charger. Keller dug his heels into the dirt, stopping the SWAT operators for just a second. He stared at Malik, pure hatred and disbelief contorting his face. "You," Keller spat. "You're a Fed." "No," Malik said, taking a slow sip of his coffee. "I told you exactly what I was. I'm a structural engineer." Malik took a few steps forward, closing the distance between him and the disgraced deputy. He looked Keller directly in the eye, dropping his voice to a quiet, lethal register. "Years ago, you pulled my little brother over on Highway 87. You claimed you smelled weed. You took $25,000 from him, money he saved for years to go to college. You ruined his life because you thought you wore a badge that made you untouchable." Keller swallowed hard, the color draining completely from his face as the realization hit him. This wasn't just a random sting operation. This was a targeted execution of his empire. "I offered you a lifeline, Grant," Malik said softly. "I told you to leave the car, but you just couldn't help yourself, could you?" Keller hung his head, the fight completely draining out of him. He was shoved into the back of the federal transport van, the heavy doors slamming shut on his long reign of terror. Soon after, the Oconee County Sheriff's Department was dismantled. The FBI executed simultaneous raids on the homes of Sheriff Croft, Deputy Brennan, and the corrupt county judge implicated in the audio recordings. The slush fund ledgers found in the warehouse provided the DOJ with a roadmap to refund millions of dollars in stolen assets to hundreds of innocent victims, including Malik's younger brother. "I must say," Keller, facing RICO charges and eager to save himself, flipped on everyone. He detailed years of civil asset forfeiture abuse, effectively condemning his former colleagues to decades behind bars. Later, Malik drove his charcoal gray Dodge Charger back down Highway 87. The dashboard had been replaced, the custom wiring removed, and the passenger seat freshly reupholstered. The sun was shining through the pine trees, casting warm golden light onto the asphalt. He cruised past the exact spot where he had been pulled over. There were no police cruisers hiding in the shadows. There were no corrupt deputies waiting to prey on the innocent. The highway was just a road again, safe and clear. Malik smiled, turning up the radio, and drove on. The Oconee County takedown proves that absolute power corrupts, but the truth always finds a way to step into the light. What did you think of Malik's incredible bravery and the FBI's brilliant trap? Have you ever heard of a corrupt cop getting instantly served with karma like this? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this real-life story of justice, please hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more thrilling content.